Tonight on What the Heck Do I Know's PM Update Positive Correlations and Target Ambition, we're talking again about New Year's resolutions. If you have ever participated in this yearly tradition, you have probably made some goals that you never reached. Last week, we talked with life coach Rachel Roberts about why so many people fail to reach their goals. This week, we're talking to many people about their plans for New Year's resolutions. Now, 2021 is definitely going to be a difficult year for most of us, but hopefully not as difficult as 2020. If it is, though, most of us have learned lessons about how to be flexible and about what we are capable of during times of stress. There's always something we can try to improve our outcomes. Want to find out more? Stay with us to find out. Hey guys, I really enjoy making these videos for you, so if you get value from them or know someone who would, please support us by hitting like, subscribe, leaving comments, and sharing. This is PM Update with Leah and Mia. And now your host, Leah. Welcome back to PM Update. I'm Leah. New Year's resolutions are kind of a joke when it comes to proper goal setting. According to a 2018 New York Post article, only about 8% of people stick to them each year. In our show last week, Rachel Roberts told us that she believes so many people miss their targets for 5 reasons: not committing, not taking the correct approach, having goals that are too vague, creating too many at once, and if you do create a solid plan, not building enough flexibility into it. In our follow-up today, we will explore this in a little more depth. Mia, can you tell our viewers what we have in store for them? Sure, Leah. In our first segment, junior reporter Josie is out on the town interviewing the general public about their resolutions to see how they will approach their goals this year, and handing out some helpful advice from Rachel Roberts. In the second segment, we will talk to project manager Barbara Baker about her plan for New Year's. This sounds like a fun show then, Mia. Thanks for that introduction. Ringing in the new year with new goals doesn't have to end in failure. Stay tuned to see what others have planned and see how Barbara is planning hers. Before we get to that, though, do you know who said, "Work on your strengths, not your weaknesses"? How many of your New Year's resolutions have been about fixing a flaw? The answer to this, as well as Josie's interviews and Mia's story, coming up right now. Josie was out on the town today talking to post-holiday shoppers about their New Year's goals today. She managed to get 8 different opinions on the subject to share with you.
Excuse me, sir. Can you speak to us for a minute about your New Year's resolutions for this year?
Sure, but I really haven't thought about it yet. I suppose I'll do the same ones I had last year. Cut down on my drinking and try to get into shape. I should probably try harder this year.
It sounds like you could use a little help with your resolution. Please take this list of tips from our favorite life coach, Rachel Roberts.
That sounds really helpful. Thank you.
Excuse me, miss. Could you spare a moment to talk about your New Year's resolution plans?
Oh yeah, I have a lot of new goals for this year. More saving, more exercise, and more time with my family. I'm really going to do it this year, too.
Perhaps we can help with this breakdown on how to set SMART goals. Ooh, thank you. Excuse me, guys. Do you all have a minute to talk to us about your New Year's resolutions? I'm going to get an A in math class this year.
I'm going to make the football team this year.
I'm going to be on time for school every day this year. Those all sound like great goals. Let me share a card with you that might help you plan those out and stick to them. Hello, ma'am. Do you have a moment to talk about your New Year's resolutions this year?
I'm not sure I'll have time this year. There's just so much going on with my job and the kids and well, you know, everything.
We completely understand. How about taking this helpful list of easy ways to set simple goals to keep yourself on track during times of stress?
Oh, that would be great. Thanks.
Good morning. Do you both have a moment to spare to share your New Year's resolutions with us?
Well, I'm in a bit of a hurry, but I suppose I can spare a minute or two. I do have one resolution this year, to read one nonfiction book per week. I'm setting aside additional reading time every Sunday for this, and I have my first 4 books picked out.
That sounds like a great personal development goal. Can you tell us why you picked that one?
I wanted to expand my knowledge and understanding on several subjects, so this seemed like the best way to do it. Maybe next year I'll pick a specific subject to learn about in depth.
And how about you, ma'am? Would you like to share your New Year's resolutions with our viewers today?
Sure, I would love to. My goal is to learn 3 new skills this year. One that will help for work, one that will help with fitness, and one that's just fun.
Those both sound like a great mix. Please have this card with New Year's resolution tips to help you out if you need it. Excuse me, sir. Do you have a moment to talk about your New Year's resolutions?
My New Year's resolution is to spend time with my daughter, both playing and helping with her homework. I'm not sure how I'll manage since life is so busy, but I think I can do it.
That sounds really lovely. Please accept this card with helpful tips for reaching goals during stressful times. Good morning, ma'am. Do you have any New Year's resolutions you would like to share with our viewers?
Of course. I love your show, and I'm following Rachel's advice this year of starting one each short-term, medium-term, and long-term goal. I also have some general ideas for future short-term goals once I finish the first, so I'll be doing my research later to plan those out. I'm a project manager, and I use that approach to most things in life.
That's great! Would you like one of Rachel's helpful goal planning cards?
Well, I'm very familiar with her material, but that would be very useful as a reminder, so yes, thank you.
Everyone we talked to today, and even some that didn't want to be on camera, got one of Rachel's cards. The cards had all the same helpful suggestions from last week's show. Make sure your goal is something you want to do. Use a project management approach. Initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and control, and closing. Make your goals SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. 4, keep your list short. Don't try to overdo it. And 5, put some float in your schedule or your timeline. Give yourself a break and recalculate your schedule instead of giving up if you miss your targets. Rachel always has good advice. Thanks, Mia. And thanks, Josie, for the stories and handing out the helpful cards. Rachel says that it's more important this year than ever before to make sure your goals are achievable and realistic, and that you go easy on yourself. She wanted us to remind you all that it doesn't matter how slow the progress is, as long as you're doing what you can and still moving forward. Think of your goals as a marathon, not a sprint. Slow and steady. And rest instead of giving up. In the second half of our show, we'll be talking to Barbara, who is a project manager, and talking about her resolutions and how she is preparing for success this year. But first, the answer to our first quote question for the show. Do you know who said, "Work on your strengths, not your weaknesses"? How many of your New Year's resolutions have been about fixing a flaw? That was social psychologist, professor, and ethical leadership and author Jonathan Haidt. And for our second quote question, do you know who said, "You are never too old to set another goal or to dream a new dream"? Our final story and the answer to this question coming up next. Barbara is a project manager who is about to turn 50. She has some big goals in mind for this year, so she's taking a very serious approach to her New Year's resolutions. In her career so far, she has worked in 4 different industries, so she has a diverse background and is thinking about making another career change to something more technical.
Barbara started thinking about her new goals about 6 months ago. She wasn't thinking about New Year's resolutions at the time. She just knew that she wanted to make some changes. She was living in the UAE when her last project ended and wanted to stay in the area rather than travel during a pandemic. So she started researching some of her other interests. Gaining a more technical skill seemed like a good idea since it was more likely she would be able to work from home and could perhaps stay in one place for longer. Managing construction projects means a lot of interesting travel, but she was looking for something that would let her put down some roots. In the initiation phase, she evaluated a couple of different options by cost, time, and difficulty to learn. Eventually, she decided on data science. It had good earning potential, was interesting to her, and she thought she would be able to understand the material fairly easily. It also had lower cost and time requirements than some of the other options she looked at. Barbara learned that for someone starting out, it would take a minimum of 2 years to get an entry-level position, and most companies want someone with a degree. Since she already had a bachelor's degree, she might be able to do it a little faster. In addition to the education, she would also need hands-on experience and certifications. Since she wasn't sure how well she would do with the new learning material, she signed up for a sequel course to see how well she liked it before going all in on her new plan. Barbara loved her class and studied every day. She immersed herself in the work and knew she made the right choice. Now it was time to put the plan together. She found a professional certificate program from IBM on edX.org that would cost $411 and take approximately 1 year to complete. It included both SQL and Python programming, which is exactly what she needed for her plan. Each course requires between 2 and 7 hours per week of effort. With this information, she could build her plan. Barbara first created a SMART goal. I will complete the education required to obtain a professional certificate in IBM data science in order to make a career change to data science within 1 year by studying at least 7 hours per week and completing all the course requirements. She also planned to make a second goal about halfway through the program that addressed the hands-on experience she would need. Barbara developed the plan with a project charter. Purpose, objective, and high-level requirement is a passing score in each class and included in the SMART goal. Schedule milestones are 6 weeks for the Introduction to DS course, 7 weeks for DS tools, DS methods 7 weeks, SQL for DS 4 weeks, Python basics for DS 5 weeks, analyzing data with Python 5 weeks, visualizing data with Python 5 weeks, Introduction to Machine Learning with Python 5 weeks, DS and Machine Learning Capstone Project 6 weeks, and budget is the $411 for the course. Rather than waiting for the first of the year, Barbara decided to start the execution phase right after Christmas so that she could finish the final project before next year's holiday season. The classes have a suggested time frame for finishing, but since they are self-paced, she's using the momentum from her excitement about starting a new project to get a little bit ahead of schedule, so that if she gets off track later, it won't affect the overall timeline. After 1 week on the program, she has 2 weeks' worth of classwork completed. She's doing monitoring and control by tracking her progress weekly on a chart. She is keeping up her faster pace for as long as the motivation lasts, and she thinks she can keep it up until at least the end of January.
Now, Barbara won't be closing out her goal until she completes the capstone project, which will likely be in November or December, but she's well on her way to completing it. Taking advantage of her current motivation to get a little bit ahead and still leave flexibility in her schedule just in case something comes up that makes progress harder later on is her way of setting herself up for success. Everyone is in a different place when it comes to their ability to add extra things in their life. This is true for every year, but especially true for this one. Some people have a lot more time on their hands than usual, but lack the motivation because of the stress and uncertainty they're feeling. If you're one of those people and want to make improvements, then starting with small and short things can help you get motivated. I know I personally benefit from getting back into exercise and meditation. Maybe that will work for you. Or maybe something else. How about writing in a journal every day? Whatever you know has inspired you in the past, try that and see if it helps. If you're motivated to make big changes, take the project management and SMART goal approach. Do your research, know what you're getting into ahead of time, and make a plan. Don't forget to include your checks and targets. Then just start doing it. This is how I'm doing mine. And remember to be kind to yourself. There's no need to add stress to an already stressful time. Now, do you have any resolutions for us this year? Let us know in the comments. Now, to answer our second quote question for the day, do you know who said, "You are never too old to set another goal or dream a new dream"? It was author and lay theologian C.S. Lewis. That's all for What the Heck Do I Know's PM Update Leah and Mia and our positive correlations and target ambition segments for this week. Thank you for watching and see you next time on our next episode of PM Update. Good night. Hey there, before you go, don't forget to support these videos by hitting like and subscribe. I love seeing the comments too.